The Loretta Young Show.
Hello. What does the word society mean to you? Does it mean a group of beautifully dressed people at the opening of the opera, or the horse show, or a debutante ball? Or is it a more universal thing, something that all of us can enjoy? Now we're going to take you to a relatively small town in these United States, to a middle-class residential district.
Now, hold on, please. Gentlemen, ladies.
I'll talk to you later.
We can't all talk at once. Go on, Mr. Johnson.
Well, I'll tell you how I feel about it. I think every man should be permitted to carry a gun.
Oh, wait a minute. We cannot turn every man in this town loose with a gun. It'll be worse than the opening day of hunting season.
You know what gets me? I read in the paper where the police rounded up all known sex offenders. And I say known sex offenders have got no business running around loose.
You ought to lock them up and throw away the keys.
That's right.
Mr. Fergus,
may I
this is
say something, please?
Certainly, Mr. Williams.
This is the law. You can't lock them up until they've actually committed a crime.
That's right. They wait until some poor creature has been attacked and murdered. Then the law says you may arrest the offender.
All right, I say we ought to change the law.
That's right, I agree with you.
Now, hold on. There's another side to this. These men are sick, you might say. Some of them could benefit from the right kind of medical care. You know, psychiatric treatment. This business of changing the law, it's not that simple exactly.
Do you think it's ever that simple exactly, Mr. Peterson?
Well, now,
I don't know that this is particularly relevant right now anyhow. We're up against a situation, a real situation. And the purpose of this meeting is to try to find out what to do about
Well,
it.
as far as I'm concerned, psychiatric help.
Gentlemen,
You're right.
gentlemen.
That's no good.
gentlemen,
Gentlemen.
please. Mrs. Thomas.
Since I took the liberty of inviting Mrs. Hutton here this evening, she hasn't had a chance to open her mouth. And I'd like to hear what she has to say.
Very well. What do you think about it, Mrs. Hutton?
Well, I'm afraid I don't have the answer to the real situation, as Mr. Fergus puts it, but, well, I'm sure that something ought to be done.
Madam, I bow to you sincerely. Until this very minute, I thought the ladies from the PTA had all the answers to everything.
No, we don't have all the answers, Mr. Peterson. We tried every way we knew how to get you gentlemen interested in an ounce of prevention. But you weren't interested. In fact, some of you thought it was very funny.
Just as a point of random information, I'd like to ask a question.
Surely.
Would you tell the committee how you became such an authority on this particular problem?
Not at all. I'd be happy to. I have read a book or two on the subject, but then who hasn't? Let me go back to, I think it was a couple of months ago. I was in my own home, and I was finishing the housework. Oh, yeah, honey. Goodbye, and hurry up. You'll be late. Goodbye, darling.
Boy, these foreign dames sure are built, huh? Look at this one. She's got not many clothes on. I'll say not. Cousin Bill showed me in a magazine he had once. There's this girl on a cover. She looks something like this one, only she was tied to this torture chair, and there's this guy standing right behind her.
Hi. Oh, what you hiding, Greg?
Oh, it's nothing.
It must be something. You wouldn't be hiding it. Let me have it, will you?
Oh, it's just a magazine, that's all.
Oh?
Cousin Bill left it here.
Oh, he did. Come on, I'm waiting.
Oh, for crying out loud. I was just going to throw it out anyway. Wasn't I, John? That's the reason I got it out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Cousin Bill left this here, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
I never happened to see this magazine before.
Aren't you even going to be mad?
Should I be?
I don't know.
Now, looky here, fellas. We've talked about this sort of thing before. There is nothing evil or vulgar about the human body. It's beautiful. In fact, it's one of God's great masterpieces and should always be thought of as such. Not like this. Now, look, it's a beautiful day outside. Why don't you two kids go on out and enjoy it, huh? I was very much disturbed and perplexed by what I had learned and decided to go to the PTA. I found that they had already been working on the problem, so I decided to join them. And my first assignment was to accompany Mrs. Thomas to Mr. Blanchard's place. We saw enough evidence to convince us that we certainly were right in our efforts to eliminate indecent magazines from our newsstands.
Look, believe me, ladies, I'm just a little guy trying to make a living, that's all.
We appreciate that, Mr. Blanchard, but there are other stores in town similar to yours that, well, they refuse to carry these salacious magazines. They're getting along all right. Now, couldn't you do as well?
Look, you came in here a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
You asked me to help clean up crime comics? Okay, I went along with you.
Do you regret it?
Well, no, it's not that exactly, but we haven't finished that yet, and here you're in on a different kick.
Well, no, we haven't quite finished that yet, but we are getting there. With the help of publishers and the PTA, people like yourself.
Well, look, this is different. These aren't meant for children.
And still you display them here on the newsstand right under the children's noses.
Mrs. Thomas, I get those on consignment.
Mr. Blanchard, may I ask you, do you have any children of your own?
I've got a son in college. I've got 2 girls in high school. That's why I have to make this thing pay.
Yes, I see. Well, tell me, what would you have done if you had come home and found your 13-year-old son poring over a dirty, rotten magazine like this?
I'd give him the back of my hand across the side of his head because I raise my kids to be decent. I don't depend on somebody else to raise them for me.
Well, I raise my children, too, Mr. Blanchard. At least I try to. But it's not very easy when people on all sides try to infect them with filth like that just to make a few pennies on the
Let me
sale
tell
of a
you
magazine.
something, Mrs. Hutton. This last week, my youngest daughter, who's a freshman in high school, she came to me and she asked me, she says, Daddy, can I get a pair of shoes with high heels? I told her no. I said, you wait a while. I don't think high heels are good for your feet when you're so young.
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't see quite what this has to do with it.
Well, the point is, ma'am, I settled it. But I told her. I didn't go to all the shoe stores and say, you can't sell high-heel shoes because I don't want my daughter to wear them.
Well, I think it's quite a different situation.
Oh? Look, how come it's the seller that's always wrong? You get people to stop buying those things, I guarantee you, nobody will be selling them.
Mr. Blanchard, they won't buy it if the seller doesn't sell it. Now, we've got to start someplace, and this is a far more serious problem than high-heel shoes.
There's a few little cheesecake pictures.
Cheesecake?
Mr. Blanchard, have you noticed how many of these women are being tied to chairs, beaten, dragged by the hair? Now, you know as well as I do, these things are pointed directly at the erotic, the tendencies towards sadism. We went through all of this with the crime comics.
Mrs. Thomas, you're making a mountain out of a molehill.
Mr. Blanchard, supposing you were selling something here that was a slow poison to some of your customers.
Well, now, that's ridiculous.
Please, now, just supposing. They'd come in here and order it and would become infected. Now, would you think it's right to go on selling it to them, even though you knew it was a slow poison to them, just because they didn't know any better than to buy it?
Well, I don't know what you're referring to. We have pure food laws. You look on my wall. There's a certificate of commendation for clean food handling. Nobody ever got ptomaine in my place.
Well, we think there's something far worse than ptomaine right over here in this department.
What do you mean?
Well, don't you think it's just as wrong to poison a child's mind as to poison his stomach?
Look, ladies, I got a business to take care of. Let me fix you up Blanchard special on the house.
No, thank you, Mr. Blanchard. We have some other calls to make. But thank you so much for the time you've given us.
Goodbye.
Women.
Well, at least we got a lot of good, healthy exercise out of it.
Yeah.
How far do you suppose we walked today?
Known to ask.
Huh.
There was just some way you could get people interested. They don't care. As long as they're making the almighty dollar, they just don't care.
Apparently not. You know, I think it's so stupid. We make such a fuss about cleaning up our city, and that we allow the sale of such absolute muck in a few places like Blanchard's. Cheesecake, he had the nerve to call it.
Garbage, I'd call it.
Say.
If there was just some way to get people interested.
Garbage. What'd you say? Garbage. Move over, you old sow. Oh, move over. Move. I can get it in. It's all right, Mrs. Thomas. There you are. There. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our only point is that if Mr. Blanchard can dispense filth in his establishment, we have the right to raise pigs next door to him.
And we insist that these poor little pigs aren't any more hazardous to public health than the garbage in some of the magazines for sale in that store.
Mm-hmm. And what's more, if we're going to have a campaign to clean up our city, then let's keep it clean. But why make such a fuss about throwing a gum wrapper on the street and then tolerate filth like this? It just doesn't make sense.
Come on.
Well, now, does it?
Look, there they are. Now, that's a violation of the zoning ordinance. You can't keep pigs in this area. Make them get them out of here.
Good morning, officer.
He's right, ma'am. This is in violation of Ordinance 3862, Section 4, which prohibits the maintenance of poultry or swine outside an agricultural area.
Well, for your information, officer, we're not maintaining swine in this area. We are merely exhibiting these pigs for advertising purposes.
I don't see that enters into it. Okay, everybody, break it up. Come on, I'll keep moving
Officer,
here.
if you want to place us under arrest, that's up to you.
Yes, but just be sure you don't leave the city vulnerable to a charge of false arrest.
Now, let's be reasonable. You've made your point. You've had your little joke and no harm done. Now, why don't you move your pigs out of here before we get into a lot of legal complications?
Officer, we do not consider this a little joke. No, indeed. We just think it's a means of attracting the public's attention, to make the people realize what's going on, to wake them up.
To wake them up to what?
To the fact that Mr. Blanchard is selling dirty magazines that really are a menace to the public health.
That's ridiculous. All right, officer, put them under arrest. Get them out of here. They deliberately set out to violate the law. And make them get those pigs out of here, too.
They may have an angle here. I mean, about exhibiting the pigs for advertising purposes. I don't know whether that's the same as maintaining a pig or not. Hey, wait a minute.
That's all right, officer. I'm from the Daily Chronicle, Bob Williams. Well, your officer,
Elliot, I'd appreciate it as sort of a personal favor if you didn't use that particular picture. I want to talk to the captain before I do anything officially.
Okay. You boys always play ball with me, I'll play ball with you.
You mean you're not going to do anything now?
Oh, an hour one way or the other isn't going to make any difference, and I want to talk to the captain. All right, everybody, let's break it up. Come on. Keep moving. Let's go. Come on, everybody, break it up.
Tell me, which one of you ladies is Norma Hutton?
I'm Mrs. Hutton.
Oh, well, we got the story you sent out to us, the Daily Chronicle. I
Good.
came out to take some pictures.
Yes, well, I'm going to use the story.
Yeah, in a kind of a watered-down manner, I think. Now, would you mind standing about here That's right. And then you can turn around and look up at the sign. That's either way. Well, that way. That's fine. You look up at the sign as though you're reading it.
Like this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that all right?
Let's see. That's good. All right. Now let's try another one. Suppose you sit right up here on the edge of the pen, Mrs. Hutton.
Yeah.
And it'll be a good shot of the sign right behind you. And Mrs. Thomas, you could stand right about in there, please.
Here?
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, that's good composition because we've got the pig right in the middle.
That's good.
Fine. Now let's see how that looks. Could you get your back a little straighter, please, huh? That's it. And maybe cross your legs, huh?
Yes.
Good. Now, you think you could pull it up a little bit, please? You know, get a little cheesecake. Well, get the skirt up. Get a little cheesecake
sorry.
in about 3 or 4 inches. That's it.
Wait a minute.
No, hold it.
No, wait a minute. You hold it. Well,
what's wrong?
Well, this is ridiculous. I mean, well, would it be unheard of to print one picture in your paper without the cheesecake angle?
Well, I just thought we'd get a little something for the folks to look at. You know, a little sex interest. Maybe more people will stop and read the article.
Mr. Williams, in my opinion, you're not a very good newspaper man.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, do you always have to use this sex angle to command the people's attention? I mean, can you find nothing other than that? Other people do, you know. Other papers do, I mean.
Oh, lady, look, this is the way the world is. Can I help it? And far be it from me to want to try to change it anyhow.
My dear man, this is not the way the world is.
Huh?
No, there is no place else in the world where they put such unhealthy emphasis on sex as we do right here, in places like that.
Oh, now, look, lady, it's one thing to start a campaign against salacious literature sold to youngsters, but let's not try to outlaw sex completely, huh?
Look, I happen to be the mother of 4 wonderful children, so obviously I don't want to try to outlaw sex. What we want to do is do away with the filth and the muck that some people surround it with. Well, with the purpose of stimulating sales of magazines, and in the meantime, putting some rotten ideas into the minds of our own children.
Oh, don't you think you're exaggerating?
No,
I
don't think I'm exaggerating at all. Just look at that billboard. Look at it over there. Now, I ask you, do we have to use this distorted sex angle to sell everything from fishing tackle to magazines to orange juice? Well, do we?
I'll tell you one thing for sure. If it didn't work, they wouldn't use it.
Well, I'll tell you another thing for sure. We're going to pay an awfully dear price for it.
All right. Why don't you tell me all about it, huh?
The experts say the psychological effect of this kind of reading matter creates a false appetite among the moderately abnormal. It keeps hitting them from all sides. It keeps bouncing their thoughts into one single channel.
Ah.
And pretty soon, they're not moderately abnormal anymore. They are real problems. Well, that's what the experts say about this kind of stuff.
Hey, lady, okay, I'll settle for a profile shot of the pig. Unless you think that might have a bad psychological effect on somebody.
Oh, honestly. But you can tell your readers that we intend to stay here with the pigs until the city does something to clean up the filth on our newsstands. They've done it in other cities, and there's no reason why we can't do it here.
That's right.
You mean you're willing to go to jail for violating the zoning ordinance?
Oh, look, mister, we're not going to go to jail.
No?
Oh, certainly not. There are too many parents who are solidly behind us in this city. Why, they wouldn't dare put us in jail. I suppose they think this is funny or something. It wouldn't be so bad if they'd argued with us, but they just laughed at us. They got the whole town laughing at us. Well, doesn't it bother you?
I've been through this so many times.
You mean landing in jail?
Oh, no. I mean, you don't change the world overnight.
No, you certainly don't.
You just plant some seeds, and the best you can hope for that someday when you least expect it, one of those seeds will take root.
Maybe my dear old dead uncle was right. He had 2 words of advice for everybody. Keep struggling. So if you'll allow me, gentlemen, I'll go back to my original statement. No, we don't have all the answers. But we intend to keep struggling, just in case someday, somehow, some good may come of it.
I'd like to add just one thing, if I may. Not everybody laughed at us. Some of the papers, some of the publishers, some of the vendors, some of the people, in fact, in all lines of business were most cooperative. Those we'd like to thank.
Let's not lose our sense of value. We're confronted with the problem of an abnormal individual who's loose in the community. Maybe there's more than one, for all we know. But that's a far cry from getting rid of a few little magazines on the newsstand.
Mr. Blanchard, I have something here that I think maybe will help clear up the picture for you. It's an issue of Time magazine. It's dated June 24th, 1957. There's something in here I'd like you to read. Would you please? I've marked it with a red pencil. Would you read it out loud, please?
For 2 days last week, little Mary DeCasson, 6, was ordered by her parents to stay in the family's yard in Detroit's Ecorse suburb. She was being punished for wandering away from home a few days before. Then, in midweek, her mother allowed the child her customary freedom. Mary skipped down the block to play with her friends. At dinner time, Mary's mother was frantic. Mary had disappeared. By midnight, Detroit and the towns for miles around were alive with search parties. Police loudspeakers blared down the streets, exhorting families to search their houses for the little girl. Boy Scouts and soldiers hunted the swamps and thickets of the countryside. At the Ecorse police station, Mary's father, Edmund DeCasson, Jr., paced the room, calm but increasingly haggard. By morning, he'd all but given up hope. But DeCasson was forming an explosive charge of thought. I still have hope, he told newsmen that morning. But assuming that the worst has happened, I would not blame the man as much as the society that produces such men. It's a society that allows sex magazines on the stands for our kids to read. A society that measures Hollywood stars by their bosoms. A society where the telling of dirty stories and using foul language is commonplace. These things produce sex perverts out of people who have the slightest abnormal tendencies. They're encouraged by everything around them until the day society changes its fundamental moral principles and reasserts a belief in God. We will have sex perverts.
Please continue, Mr. Blanchard.
So saying, Edmund DeCasson went home to pray with his wife and neighbors. Well, shortly thereafter, that word came. 6-year-old Mary had been found in a wooded lot a mile from home. Raped, dreadfully mutilated, and dead.
I didn't want to embarrass you, Mr. Blanchard, but I felt it was necessary. I'm sure we all agree with Mr. DeCasson that society is to blame. We are society, gentlemen. You and I. Reform, like charity, must begin at home. Well, good night. And we'll see you next week.